like and subscribe, and you'll have amazing luck for the rest of the week. You won't believe what these people found washed up on the beach. Watch to the end and you'll be amazed. Number 20. Chunks of ice. Watch as hefty chunks of ice rise over a retaining wall and pile up onto the shores of the Great Lakes. The piles of broken up ice aren't just cluttering up beaches and lake shorelines. They're advancing farther inland, colliding with lampposts, trees, and even some lakeside residences. It's not just on the patio, it's also on the door, window, and roof. These aren't little cubes of ice for your chilled drink. Mind you, one block of ice can be more than 20 inches thick. And with the sprawling blocks of ice piling up as high as 30 feet, they have the potential to crash and damage anything in their way. This striking phenomenon is known as an ice tsunami, and believe it or not, that's mostly the power of the wind blowing all those massive ice boulders into ominous piles on the shoreline. Fierce winds blowing directly over loose ice easily push it towards the water's edge and onto the gently sloping shore. From there, the ice accumulates high enough for it to start making its way over land, and there's no stopping it once it starts piling up. I wonder how long it took for all that ice in the street to melt away. Number 19. Thick seafoam. Seeing enormous amounts of seafoam washing up on beaches during severe storms is nothing new. But you should know that the foamy phenomenon has nothing to do with whale juice. Seafoam is actually made of a decaying organic matter, usually forming in enormous volumes during a chaotic storm. While the phenomenon may occur on any beach in the wake of cyclonic conditions, beaches in Australia have reported the most instances of seafoam washing up on their shores in copious amounts. This footage shows the moment when a stretch of coastal town in Australia was covered in seafoam so thick that cars, trees, and buildings were lost in it. Residents headed out to the streets to catch sight of the unusual occurrence, take pictures, and even play in the bubbles. Authorities warn that there could be hidden dangers lurking underneath the thick foam and urge residents to keep their families safe. It's so difficult to see anything in the dense foam. There could be dangerous debris floating around, and even sea snakes and things like that have washed up. At one time, a dog was lost in the foam, and that was only about knee-high. It was a tense few seconds with everyone trying to help the woman search for her pup. That was no playful bubble bath. Number 18. Blue sailor jellyfish. Here, billions of small blue jellyfish stretching as far as the eye can see washed up on the shores across the American coast, leaving many beachgoers amazed. These elegant blue jellies are called Velella velella, or by the wind sailors, and surprisingly, this strange marine invasion occurs once every few years. Marine experts explain that these creatures float across the oceans at the mercy of the wind and water currents, as their name suggests. Sometimes, their sails catch the wind blowing in the wrong direction, leading them to wash ashore and stranded, usually numbering in the millions. Being a jellyfish, the blue sailor can sting prey. Fortunately, they only inject a small dose and it's not as potent, meaning that you won't feel the effects of its sting. But whatever you do, don't touch your eyes after picking up one of these little jellies, or you'll regret it. Number 17. Rubber duckies. Every once in a while, a small battalion of bright yellow rubber duckies washes ashore somewhere in the world, most recently landing on the shores of Hawaii, South Africa, Australia, and the UK. But did you know these little yellow ducks are part of an armada of close to 30,000 that have been sailing half across the globe for 30 years? Their great journey began with an accident in the North Pacific, which saw a shipping container packed with thousands of bright bath toys washed aboard a merchant ship during a storm in 1992. The container broke open and thousands of rubber duckies, turtles, and frogs bobbled halfway around the world for many years. The great ocean currents carried them to various destinations where a small collection was found washed ashore. Scientists tracked their movement to learn about and chart the great ocean currents, which provide key information regarding our planet's overall climate. Most importantly, however, is the role these little duckies have played in telling the story about marine pollution and how plastic can survive for years, traveling over vast distances to kill marine life somewhere in the globe's sea. Number 16. Valuable cargo. The usually deserted Dutch coast was a scene of unusual activity on this cold morning on January 2, 2019. Dozens of shipping containers full of merchandise had landed on the Dutch beaches after hundreds of them fell off the cargo ship MSC Zoe in rough waters. Some containers broke open on the shores, splitting their valuable cargo all over the ash-colored beach sand. Local residents swooped on the beach to recover whatever valuable items they could find. They took home an array of items including toy cars, designer clothing, shoes, light bulbs, IKEA furniture, and thousands of My Little Pony dolls. These will certainly make for the perfect donation to charity once they're all cleaned up. Those who were lucky came away with computer chips and flat-screen TVs still packed in foam. And take a look at what this guy found. I bet those are going straight to the pantry. Oh boy, it was quite the windfall, and fortunately, Dutch laws permit scavenging for items that wash ashore. So the ditty finders keepers applies here, same as in schoolyards. Although I do wonder how much of what was recovered here was not water damaged. Number 15. Giant Lego figures. This larger-than-life Lego man was found washed up on a beach in Holland in 2007. And then similar figures were spotted washed up on different beaches over several years. England in 2008, Florida in 2011, California in 2012, and Japan in 2014. These were different life-size figures, but all of them were made of Lego pieces, and they all had the same cryptic message printed across their torso, which read, "No realer than you are." Whatever that meant, nobody knew, and it left passersby scratching their heads. That and the question of where these giant figures had come from. Of course, people stopped to take photos with the unusual goos, and they sometimes got a little creative with their selfies too. With the myriad of posts on social media, the giant figure had gotten enough attention for people to do a little digging for answers about it. Turns out, the giant Lego figures were part of an artwork by a Dutch artist known only as Ego Leonardo, and his pseudonym was written across the back of every Lego figure he made. The artist would take a giant Ego man with him and leave it on the beach in an area where he was hosting his art exhibits. It would seem that giant Ego men were part of a brilliant marketing campaign, and all those posts on social media helped spread the word. Number 14. Large pipes. These giant pipe segments were found washed up on the coast of Norfolk, England in 2017. Sunseekers visiting the English beach were intrigued by the strange objects on their shores. Many of them put off their plans to bask in the sunshine, going instead to investigate the mysterious tubes. It later emerged that the pipes had broken free from a Norwegian ship transporting them to Algeria. It wasn't clear what the pipes were meant for, but they were really big. One was almost half a kilometer long, and they were large enough to drive a car through. Suffice to say, the strange sight attracted an array of visitors with pictures emerging of curious beachgoers who stopped to take selfies posing next to the washed-up giant pipes. Some people managed to climb on the pipes and film themselves walking on them despite the authorities' warning of the danger of falling or the massive pipes rolling over someone. Number 13. Red Jeep Cherokee. This is the internet's famous red Jeep Cherokee that got abandoned at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina during Hurricane Dorian. The vehicle got stuck on the shores as a hurricane loomed, making it too dangerous for a tow truck to remove it at the time. Local media set up a live feed to show how the stranded vehicle would hold up against the torrential blasts of Hurricane Dorian's brutal waves. And just like that, the red Jeep Cherokee made headlines and became fodder for memes. Many people thought it was a welcome distraction that helped relieve some of the tension around the storm. When the hurricane passed, locals braved the harsh conditions to take pictures and videos with the vehicle. Many used the hashtag #RedJeepDorian in their posts on social media. This guy brought his bagpipes to the shores and played some somber rendition of Amazing Grace in honor of the Jeep as the storm's mascot. Number 12. U.S. Military Drone. Summer vacationers found this orange unmanned military aircraft washed up on the shores of Boynton Beach, Florida last year. The The 20-foot-long drone caused a brief scare as beachgoers initially thought it could have been possibly a bomb or missile. County sheriff deputies kept people away from the aircraft, awaiting the Department of Defense to inspect and safely recover the Army equipment. The Air Force spokesman later confirmed the aircraft wasn't dangerous to handle and didn't pose a threat to the public. Film crew and reporters were allowed to take pictures of the aircraft, identified as a BQM-1678 type drone, which the U.S. Air Force uses as aerial targets for fighter pilots. The drone was said to have been shot down during a weapons training before it was discovered washed up on the Florida beach 3 months later. Everyone who went to Boynton Beach that day was eager to snap a picture with the military drone in the background. One guy was ready to put it up on eBay if the military didn't arrive to recover it. He didn't look like he was kidding about it. Number 11. Wartime Bunker. This old military structure on the Isle of Sheppey in Kent looks a little like it came with the tide and got stuck on the beach, but it was actually washed out of an eroded cliff. This battery is one of many sea forts built in the 1940s and as part of the Second World War coastal defense program. Many of these wartime bunkers were decommissioned after the war ended, and some were sold for scrap. Looking at the remnants of these sea forts today, it's hard to imagine that these were spread across the country's coastline to help counter aggression from invading forces. This particular battery is one of the few concrete bunkers that remain mostly intact. Although, it doesn't look like it can win any design awards for how it's sitting askew on the beach. Originally, the bunker stood proper some 100 feet inland, atop the cliff, but as you can see, it's now sitting on the beach and very close to the water. A rather peculiar sight resulting from years of erosion on the coastline. Number 10. Red Buoy Number 8. This stranded navigational marker lived a cool life somewhere out in the ocean until it decided to surprise beachgoers in New Smyrna Beach. The otherwise quiet strip of beach saw an influx of beachcombers and curious residents of the adjacent condominium communities dropping by to get a glimpse of the strange new attraction. The unbothered buoy sat cockeyed on the beach as groups of onlookers took turns snapping selfies next to it. Granted, the Red Buoy Number 8 was no beach Jeep Cherokee, and it wouldn't be trouble to sit properly for a couple of likes on Instagram. Those looking to spice up their photos had come up with innovative ways to make their selfies stand out, which for most people meant climbing atop the towering spectacle. They'll tell you it was no small feat. The county beach safety spokesperson asked those trying to climb the buoy to at least consider the possibility of injury, as some parts were quite rusty. Otherwise, the authorities didn't find any law prohibiting beachgoers from inspecting and taking pictures with the object while it was on the beach. Number 9. Ocean Drilling Platform. This is definitely not something you see every day. In August 2016, the Transocean Winner drilling rig washed up on the coast of the island of Lewis in Scotland. The massive ocean oil rig was being towed from Norway to Malta when it broke free from the tugboat during heavy weather at sea. No one was on board the 19,000-ton rig, which was said to carry 280 metric tons of diesel when it separated from the tugboat pulling it. Some of the oil spilled over when it ran aground, but authorities reported that it didn't pose any threat to marine life as it likely evaporated. Police warned beachgoers to stay away from the oil rig as it still contained a lot of oil on board. Still, there were those who couldn't contain their curiosity. They stood as far as they were allowed to take pictures or simply eye the massive rig, pondering how powerful the sea must be to carry such a large, heavy thing all the way to their shore. How they were going to move it from the beach was another interesting thing spectators went to watch. Number 8. Massive drift log. It's common to find the beach strewn with driftwood after a storm. What you don't expect to find, however, is washed up tree trunks that's about 200 feet long and 13 feet in diameter. This monster-sized drift log was part of the driftwood and litter scattered across the beach at La Push in Washington following a winter storm. The trees are thought to have washed there from the Olympic National Park, which borders La Push, and is lined with Sitka spruces and giant western red cedars, growing a couple of 100 feet tall. Still, Park officials were amazed by the sheer size of the drift log that towered over everything on the beach, especially the visitors who went to take pictures. Park officials believe that a tree that size must have taken quite the beating before it came down. Rain squalls accompanied by strong gales of wind howling through the forest in spring must have succeeded in toppling the oversized drift log into the river flowing to the Pacific. Driftwood that size could only be carried when the river was flooded and could only be brought ashore when the ocean was at high tide. You simply have to be amazed at how nature functions. Number 6. Double-headed dolphin. Morning walkers were greeted with a curious sight on the beach in Izmir province of Turkey on the 8th of August 2014. Dolphins popping up on beaches is a common sight, all right. But finding a double-headed dolphin like this one washed up on the beach is a completely different story. The carcass of the two-headed dolphin seemed to have washed onto the shores due to a terrible storm that raged that night before. The unusual dolphin had two heads with all the usual facial features but shared the body and tail. Anyone who came across the strange washed-up creature was either shocked or fascinated by it. Marine biologists from a university in the province commented on the discovery, saying that the dolphin's makeup was similar to that of conjoined human twins. Life for a conjoined dolphin is especially difficult given their strained movement, which is crucial for both swimming after prey and swimming away from predators. Most calves born with the condition rarely make it to their first birthday. Remarkably, the one they found in Turkey is believed to have lived more than 12 months. Number 4. Giant eyeball. A beachcomber found this softball-sized eyeball in Pompano Beach, Florida, and handed it to wildlife officials. Wow, what's up with Florida? It left experts scratching their heads. The question on everyone's mind, what creature did the giant eyeball belong to, and how did it end up in the ocean? It looks an awful lot like it came from a sea creature because look at the size of it. No terrestrial creature that we know of has eyes that big. Anyone who had to guess who the eyeball belonged to thought of either whales, giant squid, or some kind of undiscovered sea cyclops. Marine biologists couldn't immediately identify the mystery eyeball but ruled giant squids out based on the presence of bone around the eye. Squids are made of relatively soft tissue. Researchers were hopeful they could eyeball the mystery blue sphere. See what I did there? As in eyeball, and that's an actual eye in question? Anyway, the idea was to use genetic testing to solve the mystery, and the results showed that it belonged to a swordfish. Knife markings were identified, suggesting that a fisherman had probably cut them out while dressing the fish and threw the waste back into the sea.
Now it's time for today's best pick.
Today's topic was suggested to us by a subscriber just like you. Let us know in the comment section what topics you want us to cover, and your suggestions could be featured in our next video. Alright, where were we? Oh yeah. Number 3. Beached whales filled with plastic. Anytime a whale washes up on the beach, the event triggers a lot of questions. In December 2019, a young sperm whale was found washed up on a Scottish beach. Local researchers found 220 pounds worth of netting, tubing, bundles of rope, gloves, cups, and plastic bags among other debris inside its stomach. The team couldn't determine whether the plastic was to blame for the whale's death and standing, but the sheer volume of it was nevertheless horrific. A few years ago, Greenpeace Philippines modeled life-size sculptures of a 50-foot-long blue whale made entirely from marine waste. The team filled the model whale's stomach with containers, bottles, plastic bags, and waste gathered from the ocean. The installation could be found on Nyack Beach in the Philippines. People were moved by the initiative, which aimed to create awareness of the danger posed by plastic waste found in the ocean. Number 2. Discarded face masks. Single-use face masks have been instrumental in warding off the coronavirus since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, they're now emerging as a big problem for the environment, as most masks and other pandemic-related wastes aren't disposed of properly. Ocean conservation groups are growing concerned for marine life and seabirds as thousands of coronavirus masks cast into the countryside end up in the ocean sea. The situation seems worse in densely populated cities like Hong Kong, where lots of face masks and sanitizer wipes from its nearly 8 million residents end up being discarded as litter in parks, roadside verges, and drains. Where these lead to waterways, all that waste ends up floating around in the ocean or washing up on beaches along with the usual plastic packaging and other trash. Volunteers say that they find discarded COVID-19 masks and PPE items washed ashore on nearly all beaches they targeted for cleanup drives.
Before we move on, I've got a little challenge for you that'll take 5 seconds to complete. So here's the deal. You just leave a like on this video, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, and you will get 25 years of amazing luck. Try it, it really works.
Number 1. Decapitated great white shark. An animal conservation group shared photos of this great white shark missing its body. The shark head washed up on a beach in New Zealand, sparking fears there could be a massive super shark roaming the waters. However, multiple stab wounds to the shark's severed head indicated that the creature was likely killed, which is unlawful under the Wildlife Act. Great white sharks and other sharks like the hammerhead are considered to be protected species, meaning that it's illegal to catch them deliberately. Any fisherman who accidentally catches a protected species is supposed to release it back into the water and notify the authorities. What's more, catch and release for sport is legal in some countries. The animal conservation group that shared photos of the shark head acknowledged that the stress of catch and release, combined with tissue damage from the fishing hook, can sometimes lead to the shark's death. However, they doubt it was the case with the shark missing its torso, with stab wounds to the creature's head pointing to the deliberate unlawful killing of the protected species. Killing or being in possession of parts belonging to a protected species attracts a maximum penalty of $250,000 in fines or 2 years in jail. Hey, you made it to the end. Check out our other videos for more amazing content. Thanks for watching. Until next time, adios.